Is that a good use of taxpayer dollars? That's a harder question for me. It's easy to say, should you be given outlets? Should you be given the New York Times money? It's different if you're talking about the Topeka, Kansas Register newspaper.
Why would you give them money, though? I don't think left, right, center, anybody should get money from the government, because in a way, your loyalty lies there because they're paying you.
Right.
That's
the argument.
No,
but I'm saying we haven't heard that story yet.
Give the opposing argument, though. Argue that.
Patrick Bet David brought on Chris Cuomo onto the PBD podcast, and whenever Chris Cuomo said something absolutely ridiculous about media and about defending the woke cult and the way that the government treats the media, Patrick Bet David just had to put Chris Cuomo back into his place here live on the PBD podcast on the Valuetainment YouTube channel. Let's get into this clip here where Patrick Bet David goes off on his woke co-host, Chris Cuomo.
As a tacit admission, they did the same thing.
Got you.
And so everyone is looking at it, making the natural comment, saying, why on earth is our government, through USAID, sending money to a news outlet?
Right.
Why are they doing that? This is not like, hey, we're all going to go over to Vietnam for, this commemoration of this, and, we'll help you with travel. A couple of you extra people can be on Air Force One. Those things happen. But this is, why are you giving them the money for this? Then there was a indication, this is my favorite. Apparently Politico, by a couple hours, was the first breaker of the Russian interference story during the election.
Weird.
And so it's like, wow. So now the question is, was the government not only sending money, but was the government also sending narratives? 4 o'clock, the story will be Russian interference, and here's what we got. It doesn't look good. It looks very, very gooey is the word I'm coming up with for Politico.
You're dovetailing a little bit with what Schellenberger's been talking about with some other coordination that he found between government funding and the CIA and the media, which is very cloudy at this point. The problem with this story when it came out, and I believe it was most likely leaked by the Doge guys because of who broke it, you don't see far-right podcasters breaking a lot of news, right? And they all came out at once with this story, so somebody probably leaked it to them. It was leaked as a USAID story, and it isn't. Most overwhelmingly, the money does not come from USAID.
It's only 44 grand from
right,
USAID.
But it is. So they came out heavy on USAID. Why? Because that's the narrative that they wanted to run, right? And that's what was leaked to them. That's the problem with not being an accountable media organization, is that you'll just take what you're fed. But there is two legitimate questions here. There are two legitimate questions. One is, should taxpayer dollars be going to any outlet for any reason? Okay, because of the inherent conflict that Tom is bringing up. And I think that's a legitimate question, and it's a little surprising. I've never heard of this before. There's a second question, though. Congress funds a lot of regional and local media. A lot of outlets are dying, right? Local news is struggling in a lot of places, especially in print. There's a lot of subsidies. Is that a good use of taxpayer dollars? That's a harder question for me. It's easy to say, should you be given outlets? Should you be given the New York Times money? It's different if you're talking about the Topeka, Kansas Register newspaper.
Why would you give them money, though?
I
don't think left, right, center, anybody should get money from the government, because in a way, your loyalty lies there because they're paying you.
Right.
That's
the argument. No, but I'm saying we haven't heard that story yet. Give the opposing
argument, though. Argue that. Argue it and say, the argument that people would say no, we should fund these small little media organizations. What is that argument for?
In the public interest of information and news, that you want an informed citizenry, and that these outlets are going to close down. There will be fewer outlets. There'll be more driven by agendas, and we want to make sure that there's a robust, free media, even if that means there has to be some supporting of smaller outlets that wouldn't survive in the marketplace. That's the argument.
Remember Voice of America?
It's so funny how, you can take Chris Cuomo out of the woke news network, but you can't take the woke out of Chris Cuomo. He tries his best. He's trying to fit in with the PBD podcast. I actually respect what Patrick Bet David did in hiring Chris Cuomo. I get what he's trying to do. He's not trying to be in an echo chamber like basically everybody else is on the left and the right, to be honest with you. And I don't agree with everything that Patrick Bet David says or does, not even close to it. But with the Chris Cuomo hire, I do respect it. You know, I would rather, it's much more entertaining to watch people who aren't in an echo chamber and just, you know, just a circle jerk of the same opinions every single day. It's nice to have some differing opinions. With that being said, it's good that that Patrick Bet-David checked Chris Cuomo there, because what he was saying is very dangerous, and it's a slip up. I think it's a complete slip up into what Chris Cuomo is truly thinking and what his real ideology is, where he's saying that the government should pay certain news organizations. And Patrick Bet-David's like, no, none of them should be paid. Left, right, or center, doesn't matter who you are. None of them should be paid by the government. Because even if the government just pays you and doesn't explicitly say, hey, spin this story this way, spin this news, this breaking news this way to make us look good, to make the president look good or make the president look bad, depending on who's in office, even if they don't say that, they're still going to end up doing it, because like Patrick Bet-David said, your loyalty is just naturally going to lie with the government if they're paying you money. It's just like, you know, if a boss is telling you, hey, go do this task, and the task, if done well, is going to benefit that boss, he's not specifically saying, hey, go do this task and do it extremely well, but because that person is paying your bills, he doesn't have to specifically say that. You're just automatically, naturally going to do that thing to the best of your ability because you want to please that person who's paying your bills. The same thing goes for any news network who's getting paid by the government, whether they're independent, whether they're, you know, a mainstream media outlet, MSNBC, or Patrick Bet-David's podcast, whatever one it is. They're just naturally going to have that loyalty there. So it's unbelievable that Chris Cuomo would even suggest that, but it's good that Patrick Bet-David shut him down.
It was funded by the government. It's supposed to be out there, right, on a global basis, capitalism, freedom, and all that. Well, all they did is the government has taken that same technique and said, hey, wait a minute. If we do it that way, then we could also do it this way, and we could, whoever's in power, you know, has the power of the pendulum swinging that side of the aisle, and go and spend the money and do it.
I mean, look, you can argue that we are living proof right now that you don't need to do it this way anymore. Again, it's a political question, not a legal question. And I think that the media has evolved in a way where everybody has immediate access to information and they have their own microphone. So maybe the situation has changed and it's time to look at it, because every dollar you save is a deliverable on what the promise of the last campaign was.
I'm looking at this one here. It says political received $44,000 from USAID. But was given millions more from by other agencies.
Yeah, mostly HHS.
HHS gave him $1.37 million.
Yeah.
Why?
So I did a little research on this. They have an energy, they have a special product that has like deeper experts and stuff. But here's the problem. Congress buys subscriptions also, Pat. But they do like a subscription that you can go in and everybody uses the same code for the New York Times, so that all members...
If you enjoy content like this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
Members of Congress can get access to these different media outlets. I don't have so much of a problem with that. They want to subscribe to Valuetainment so that everybody can see what's going on here. That's cool. They should be informed about what's happening at significant places. It's when you allow it on an individual basis, you wind up netting up these costs. And now you have like 937, as we were talking about earlier, your own audit, people getting separate subscriptions. Yeah. That's when it gets expensive.
This comes down to basically one thing. It's the government efficiency.
Yeah.
So imagine you're a family and your income is $100,000 a year, okay? And then you look at your line-by-line budget, or your audit, as Pat called it, and hold on, guys, our income is $100,000, but we spent $120,000. But not only do that this year, we did that last year, the year before, and the year before.
But it's also not car and driver. It's the New York Times, and there is a conflict.
But I don't even know what that means, Cuomo, but let me get to my
Car and Driver magazine, who cares if you subscribe? There's no agenda.
Yeah.
You subscribe to the New York Times, there's a conflict.
Okay, but I'm talking about income and expenses budget.
Simple point.
Good. But the point is this. Imagine you're the U.S. government. How much was our U.S. government income this year? $5 trillion. How much was our expenses? $6.8 trillion. There's a deficit of $1.8 trillion. Guys, these aren't small numbers. These aren't millions. These aren't billions. Almost $2 trillion we're in the red. So how long is that sustainable for? Pat, we talked about the U.S. GDP of what it was in 2024. How much was it? $29 trillion.
And you know which party cares about that more?
Hopefully both, but it's probably the Republican Party.
Neither. Neither give a damn.
Well,
they never cut spending.
The Tea Party,
on their watch.
I would say agrees with that, but I don't know if they do anything.
Yeah, I would say I agree with Chris Cuomo and Adam Sosnick there in that neither party cares in terms of the actual politicians that get elected, but the people who are electing these politicians do care. You know, it's a story as old as time, right? The politicians claim that they're one way. They claim they're going to do certain things, and that their party elects them as the presidential candidate. They win the presidency, and they don't do a ton of the things that they claim they were going to do. You know, Donald Trump is one of the very few people who has ever actually said, I'm going to go after the world elites. I'm going to drain the swamp, and actually attempted to do those things, you know? So the fact that he has Doge, and as cringy as that is, man, like the fact that it's called Doge, like I get it. It's Elon Musk. It's funny, all that stuff, whatever. It's cringe to me, but it is what it is. At least it exists, right? And, you know, I hope that they do go cut the Pentagon's spending and the funding and audit where the money is all going, because I'm tired of getting taxed out of my mind, you know, getting money just stolen out of my pockets with no say from my end. And then, you know, I have no idea where the money's going. And most of it's going into politicians' pockets, and it's going overseas, and I don't know where it's going, and I have no say in where it goes. And that needs to be audited. That needs to be changed. That needs to be fixed 100%. So I'm glad that Doge exists. And I would say that the actual politicians of the parties, like Chris Cuomo was saying here, they don't care about cutting spending, because they want money to go into their pockets as well. But as far as the voters of these different parties, they very much care about the spending and where money is being spent, because we're the ones that are getting money stolen out of our pockets every year whenever tax season comes around. So we do care, but the politicians don't. That's facts. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about Patrick Bet David shutting down Chris Cuomo for that ridiculous statement that he made about the government paying media outlets. And let me know in the comments, which side are you on? Are you on Patrick Bet David's side, or are you on Chris Cuomo's side?